about to sign up?
That would be Zoom, I'm guessing then.
Yeah, it was Zoom.
Probably,
Yeah, that's it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome. All right, well, I'll hit the record button.
Yeah, you let me know. Yeah.
And hang on.
Sorry.
I was going to say it's 7 a.m. in Australia, so I'm guessing most of the people getting notifications won't see them for a few hours yet.
Yeah. Alrighty.
Welcome, everybody, to episode 167 of the You Can't Comp This NBA Trading Card Podcast. We are your hosts, Adam, Amy, and Russell Gibson. And today we have a very special guest on the show, Robert Steinfeld, Emmy award-winning TV producer. Russell, how have you pulled this off?
I had an email from Camille, and I think it was just as easy as that, really. So, Robert, we're very gracious. We're very happy that you've come on board, and we can't wait to hear your stories about your time in the basketball fraternity. I think that's the best way to say it. So let's just get straight to it. Please introduce yourself. Tell us about your Emmy, and then we'll go from there, I think.
Yeah, I've been involved with the NBA since 1980, and I worked for the Dallas Mavericks in their initial season for 9 years. Then I went to the San Antonio Spurs for 23 years.
Wow.
And my first season was in 1989 when David Robinson came in. It was his rookie season.
Yeah.
So I got there with the Spurs, and fortunately I was there during the heyday where we had David Robinson, Tim Duncan, Manu Ginobili, Tony Parker,
what a team.
on, and Sean Elliott, who's in my book, and of course, David Robinson and Tim Duncan too. And we got 4 championships while we were there.
Yeah.
Awesome.
And it was even presented with championship rings, which was really nice. But, there's a story about that too, but I'll tell you in a minute. But
do you wear it around, like when you go down the street to do your shopping? Or?
Well, no, but I actually wore it this morning. I was at a Texas-Oklahoma football luncheon. They're playing tomorrow or today in your world. I guess it would be tomorrow for you, but anyway, Saturday our time. And there was a luncheon sponsored by the Goodyear Cotton Bowl, and all the media was there. And so I actually wore it like a few hours ago today, one of them. But I don't wear it around normally. It's kind of big, and I don't want to like show off or anything, but when you go to a big event like that, it's kind of cool.
Yeah, 100%.
Then I moved on to then I moved on and did the New Orleans Pelicans when Anthony Davis was there.
Yeah.
So we got that, and we went to the playoffs and stuff. So
Eric Gordon was on the team then.
Yeah, there was it was fun to do the team, and they just changed names from New Orleans. What was it, Jazz or something? No,
the New Orleans Hornets.
Yeah, the Hornets. Yeah,
right.
And then I got there when they were the Pelicans, right? They were the New Orleans Jazz originally until that team moved to Utah.
Yeah.
When they were in the ABA, that's when that happened.
That's going way back, isn't it?
Yeah. That one when I was a kid, I used to follow the ABA. But anyway, then I not only won 1 Emmy though, won 10 Emmys, and those and a few of those are from the Summer Olympics, and some are also for NBA and Major League Baseball and others. So, it's been a fun career, and I'm still working in the league. So,
and so probably for someone like myself, do you know what the Australian equivalent is for an Emmy?
No.
Is that like a Logie or? Help me out here.
No, it's like an Academy Award, but for television.
Television, yeah. Right. So it's a Logie, right? In Australia, and you probably don't. We've got the Logie Awards, which is our television awards locally.
Yep. Okay.
Yeah.
So these are national awards, and some are regional, but it would be the equivalent, like someone going up for an Academy Award in motion pictures, but this is in the television's
TV,
version of it. Yeah.
So in You Can't Comp This tradition, we have to ask you, what's your earliest hobby memory?
Well, I used to collect baseball cards,
Yeah.
you know, when I
Yeah.
was growing up. Actually, I lived in New Jersey till I was 9. But when we lived in New Jersey, you would get those Topps baseball cards,
Yep.
and you would open them up and it would have the pink bubble gum in it. And
Yeah,
you were
fantastic.
hoping it wasn't going to be like a real hard stick of pink bubble gum. You were hoping. And if it was, then there was a trick just to put the cards back in the wax paper pack and stick it in your pocket for a while. And then the gum would soften up. Right.
Oh, wow.
But you had to be careful because you didn't want to ruin the edges of your cards. Right.
That's correct.
But because we lived in New Jersey, right outside of New York City, you were just hoping you were going to get a Yankee card.
Yep.
Like you wanted a Mickey Mantle card, a Tom Tresh, Bobby Richardson, Joe Pepitone, you know, that era, Roger Maris, you know.
Do you have any Mantle rookie cards stashed away in your
I
shoebox?
don't have a rookie card, but I do have a lot of Mickey Mantle memorabilia. I have just to my right, you can't see it, but I have a hat that was authenticated and signed, a Yankee real wool cap that was signed by Mickey Mantle and Whitey Ford. And they didn't know it, but they signed it twice on the top of the bill and underneath.
Yeah.
And I actually,
wow.
and I've got that authenticated. And so I moved to Dallas, no Major League Baseball team, and it's really unbelievable. But I end up playing baseball, high school and junior high school. And who's my teammate in junior and senior high school in Dallas? Is David Mantle, Mickey Mantle's son, because Mickey lived in Dallas and his kids went to public school, and David looked just like his dad, you know, and he had natural ability to hit. He didn't get his dad's speed, you know. His dad started out as a shortstop, but ended up playing with him, and I was wondering if his dad ever came to our games, and he said no. He goes, but I see his mother there all the time. Well, turns out that when Bob Costas from NBC, the announcer, I'm not sure if you know who he is in Australia, but a very big, you know, name, Emmy award-winning announcer from NBC Sports for years.
Yeah, we know
he was a big Mickey.
He was NBA announcer, yeah.
Yeah, so he was a big Mickey Mantle fan too, and still carries a Mickey Mantle card in his wallet to this day.
Oh wow!
Yeah, right.
Well, he interviewed Mickey right before he passed away, and he said one of his biggest regrets was not watching his sons play baseball and sports, and coming out of a meeting, mingling with the other parents, and he would come, but he would stay in his car in the parking lot because he didn't want to mess with the other parents. And he said he wished he had done that. He goes, because he didn't want to deal with the other parents, but now he looks back and he goes, you know, that would have been very fulfilling, not only for the other parents, but for my kids, seeing their dad mingling, you know, with the other parents. So I wrote about that. That's a story actually in my book.
Yeah, right.
So
what was
it's weird that, you know, that there's the lineup card had Donosky, Tobolowsky, and then Steinfeld, and then Mantle. And it was really a Mantle. It wasn't just like a fake name. So that was really cool.
Wow.
So what was his perspective on that he just had too much fame to be sort of in a public domain, or he couldn't handle watching his son because he would not be able to manage, you know, his son's success or failure? Like, what was his sort of mindset?
I think it was the first thing you mentioned, you know, about having, you know, to deal with the fame publicly. And, you know, he wasn't really around much to play, you know, catch with his kids and do all that kind of stuff. But he used to live right across the street from the synagogue that we used to go to. Yeah. So, you know, a lot of our friends would head over to Mickey's house to see David Mantle, and Mick would come out on a Sunday morning and say, you guys, it's too early. You guys need to go back to Hebrew school, you know. So anyway, yeah, so he lived in, you know, not too far away in our neighborhood. So that was kind of cool. But, you know, as far as recollection, you know, getting back to your original question, yeah, that's when I remember starting to collect cards. baseball cards mostly, but then, basketball cards as well. And I still have some. I do have a David Robinson rookie card.
Nice.
I have, other cards that I've collected, a Magic Johnson, John Stockton. And I have those. I, even have some rare collecting cards. I have a Michael Jordan when he played baseball. So I have a baseball card. I produced the Celebrity Heroes of Baseball game for ESPN at the All-Star game 3 different times, and Upper Deck was a sponsor of that game. And so they gave me some collector items of original cards that I still have. They gave them to me in those plastic folders. And so they stay in pristine shapes in a notebook.
Yeah, right.
So I still have, I just looking at them, they're in the closet right behind me. So like I still have those and cherish those.
So I say most people over the years, they start off with a pretty big box, and over the years it sort of gets thinned out. Some gets thrown away, some gets lost. What cards have you got left over, and sort of what are your most cherished ones that come to your mind, I suppose?
Yeah, well, pretty much what we talked about. Those are the ones that I've saved. Yeah, the big name ones. I do have like baseball, a Greg Maddux rookie card, which is pretty big. And some other rookie cards. But yeah, I keep them, and I've got some of them that my son took and sent off to Beckett.
Yeah.
And then Beckett took them and then graded them, and then I'd send them back to me, in the case with the grade. So actually, even that, I was telling you from the Celebrity All-Star game, some of the players that are now in the Hall of Fame, they gave me those with the autographs on them. So Gaylord Perry and some other, Ferguson Jenkins baseball names. Nice. And I also have like autographed baseballs with all-time greats on it. Yeah. And I also have right over my shoulder, which you can't see, but I can bring down, I have a basketball signed by the complete championship team of the San Antonio Spurs.
Oh man, that's amazing.
Oh wow, that's a piece of like sporting history.
So, yeah, I mean, and also the championship rings that I've been given.
Yeah.
I mean, they give you an insurance company appraisal.
Yep.
If anything ever happened to the ring. But on the appraisal, they say, this is what it would cost material to replace this, but we can't put a value. It's invaluable because it's a one-of-a-kind article.
Yep.
You can't say how much it's you can't place a value on it because it's one of a kind. You can't replace exactly that. Yeah. And it means so much to that individual person. Yeah. So yeah, that's pretty cool to look at that appraisal and see what that says. And, and I've got 3 of those rings and then also a watch from the first one. So
that's awesome. That's incredible. Yeah.
Oh, and let me go back real quick to the story I was going to tell you about on the ring. A lot of times when they present you a championship ring, usually they present the NBA championship rings like on the first game of the next season on national TV.
Yeah.
Right. So, but with me, my ceremony was out by the production truck, and the production truck parks right next to the Dipsy dumpsters, the garbage bins. So my ceremony was, here's your Onyx box with your name on it, and here's your ring. Okay, that was my ceremony. And I thought to myself, I don't care where I get it, I got it. Okay,
very true.
It's kind of like golf, it's like you get a par, but it was a hard par. Your first shot was awry, and your next shot, no one cares. All they do is they look at the score and they go, okay, you got a par. That's great.
That's it.
I got the ring. I don't care how I got it or got from point A to point B. It might have been the Dipsy dumpster, but I'll take it.
So Kareem sold 4 of his championship rings and 3 of his MVP awards for $2.8 million, which would be US dollars. So that would put your ring, I reckon, at around what, $1.5 to $2 million, something like around that. What do you reckon?
I don't think so. I mean, that's very kind, but at least he's got a name, right? And I'm Robert Steinfeld, and now that I have a book, we plug again 3, 2, 1 on the air. We talked about that a little bit about how nice it was of the Spurs to present that to me because, you know, a lot of times I have friends in the business that they've worked for other teams and they didn't give them rings. So, you know, I feel very privileged. It was great to work for the Spurs organization. It's a fantastic organization.
Seems like the
to work
culture
for.
there is very important to them around Popovich and what he's trying to create down there, definitely.
Yeah, a family atmosphere. And I write about that in the book too, about a private, wasn't so private. I had a moment, you know, a bunch of moments with Pop, but one was particular. I was working for the Pelicans and I hadn't seen him for a few years. And before the game, I don't know if you know the routine with the NBA, about an hour and a half before the game, the coach comes out of the locker room and all the media is right outside the locker room and he answers questions for, you know, about 10 minutes, 5 or 10 minutes.
So
and it's like,
are you talking about Pop in this specific instance?
Pop, yeah. So Pop was actually, so I go, I'm in New Orleans. I knew this there. I'll go back. I haven't seen him in many years. And I go, so I'm just going to go back there. And if I get a chance to say hello, I will. So now the PR person's coming out with Pop and all the media is outside the locker room in the hallway. It's kind of cramped in there. And they're all waiting for him. And he comes out and he looks. And before he even addresses the media, he looks, he sees me. And I haven't seen him in years. And he goes, Steiny. He goes, how are you? And it's in front of all the media. And I go, I'm great. I hadn't seen you in a while. I just wanted to check in and say hello. And he goes, how are you doing? And I go, well, I've been with the Pelicans for, no, he goes, no. I don't mean how are you doing professionally. I want to know how you are doing personally. Yeah. And we're having this conversation where all the media is wanting to ask questions.
Hound him about stuff. And
yeah. And then I, you know, then we talked about other kind of, you know, things from the past while the media is still waiting. And I'm just saying that's the type of person Pop is. You know, he's very loyal and dedicated to the people that have worked for him and with him.
Yeah.
So for me, Pop's a really interesting one because I feel like for a while he went through this phase of being quite brash, bordering on rude to courtside reporters, where it almost became like a shtick that he was doing, in that people would ask him questions and he would sort of give them that funny look that he did for a bit, and then something happened and he sort of mellowed out a little bit, rounded out a little bit, and actually now he seems a little bit more maybe friendly towards reporters, might be like the correct phrase. What's your experience? Did you ever get the Pop treatment back in the day?
No, because you know the ground rules, right? And so you know what he does and does not like and what he will and will not do, you know?
Yeah,
so
right. Yeah.
You don't tread on that.
He seems like a no-nonsense kind of guy. And it's like, if this is rubbish that you've scripted, I don't want to hear it. And that's why you get that blank response where it's like, really? You're going to ask the generic merry-go-round questions? Ask me something for real. Like, actually ask me
a respectful question.
Exactly,
and you'll get a respectful answer.
Yeah.
Stop with the clickbait. How about we
I mean,
I don't.
82 games a year asking, you know, the same questions about defensive coverages. It would be hard to like go through that sort of process every day. I do get that. Yeah.
Well, let me say this, and my wife is not a big sports fan, but when we do see things like this, like interviews, the coaches being interviewed.
Yep.
We actually were watching a WNBA playoff game the other day, and they're interviewing one of the coaches coming out of a break, and she was like astonished. And I know I work some of these network games, so I know about how that goes about. And she goes, "How could the coach actually agree to do that in the middle of the game while they're coaching? And I don't understand why they actually ask the coaches to do this while the game's going on." You know, that was pretty astute question to me, you know?
I mean, sport is, obviously there's the actual sport element to it, but there's some big dollars involved with the entertainment value these days. And that's the production value is all about entertainment.
Well, you're right. And I know why we do it. You know, is we want to give you an insight to what's going on. And we're still trying to popularize the sport. And I think when we do things like sounds of the game, or we mic the players up and roll it in, sometimes when I'm listening to some of those things back before they air, I'm saying to myself, that's not much, but maybe it is. And then when you play certain things back, almost every time, whatever we play back, the fans are going, wow. One fan said to me afterwards, a friend says, she goes, I didn't even know the players talk on the court. And I go,
Yeah.
yeah, everyone's kind of talking and
The whole
communicating on the
time.
court.
Exactly.
They
Yeah.
go, that is so cool that you can hear that stuff.
Yeah.
You know, even the reactions and things. So
there must be some hardworking editors that go about that with some of the things that get said, I would assume. But
yeah, you got to be careful.
Yeah.
We screen everything before it airs.
Yeah, I'm surprised more profanity isn't picked up though from the sort of the courtside cameras and the ring, mics, because some of the stuff they do say is pretty wild. Just really quickly going back to Pop, because tell us maybe your favorite story about him. Because look, Pop has got a very big place in my heart, so I could talk about him all day, but let's probably not do it for an hour. But tell me, like, your favorite story about him, or your best memory, or yeah.
Well, my best memory I kind of talked about already,
Okay.
about seeing him after all those years and him coming over to me and acknowledging me and all that, and I talk about this in my book, but he's also, when a coach who worked for him or an assistant or some other person that worked as a general manager or something, he'll help them out if they're out of work, like Bernie Bickerstaff or some of these other coaches or players. He'll have them come over and work as a color analyst on our broadcast.
Yeah.
And I think little things like that, little loyal things, and PJ Carlesimo comes over and does color analysts for us, and they're really good friends. And so, yeah, he's loyal to his former players, people that work for him, and he helps out. So I think he has a really good heart, and he's very intelligent, man.
Yeah. Where do you see his next phase of his career? Because he stepped away from Team USA basketball. Do you think he'll end up as a consultant for Team USA, or do you think he'll stay in the Spurs fraternity? Like, what do you?
Well, I can't speculate what he's going to do in his career, but but I think as far as an honest answer from me, or one that I think, anyone that's been a coach for Team USA is pretty much always a consultant, because the past coach is going to go back and consult with them about what you did or what you didn't do. And, I'll tell you what, Steve Kerr, the current Team USA coach, played for the Spurs and worked with it. I know Steve really well. He was our color analyst for a while on that and on college basketball. So I know he consulted back with Pop. So you may not be an official consultant, but if you did, I'm sure Pop consulted with Coach K, when Coach K was Team USA before him.
Yeah.
And so, once the Team USA coach, I know it was, he was coaching Team USA while he was coaching the Spurs, and same thing with Kerr. It's a lot of added responsibility. You've got to be involved in scheduling two teams. You have to delegate stuff, and you don't want your teams to suffer from it. So,
it's a huge undertaking.
So the other name that was in your Spurs part was Larry Brown. Can we talk about Larry Brown for a little bit? So my love for Larry Brown is that he won the NCAA championship and then obviously the NBA championship. And I think for me, why it's significant is because he took that Detroit team that probably had no business beating that Shaq and Kobe team. Like, I think in terms of coaching achievements, for me, that's, that's right up there. I would say the same thing. He's sort of been known to be a little bit prickly with reporters over the year and sort of that interaction part. But I'm just Googling now. He's 84 years old and he's still coaching. Like, the true definition of a basketball lifer, that's,
He's always a coach. I mean, we did a show, which we also talk about in the book. It won 2 Emmy Awards, called Icons of Coaching. And Larry Brown was one of our subjects of our hour special. So you can read about that in the book. And he then, when we did that interview, he was actually the head coach of SMU basketball at that point. This is after his NBA career. This is like 10 years ago, or not even that long ago. But we met him up in Dallas and interviewed him and talked. He talked about so much about, the Sixers with Allen Iverson. And, when he was with the Spurs, I used to wear like the tortoiseshell glasses, and like he did. And when I would come off the team bus, people would think I was his son. So I was like known as Larry Brown Jr. or something. But But yeah, he was very much a defensive-minded coach.
Yep.
And so, like Sean Elliott, who played for us, he was more of an offensive-minded player. But when Larry Brown was our coach, he would really push, Sean and teach him to be a great defensive player as well.
Yeah.
But always nice to us, friendly, and was a great coach.
Alrighty. So I think just looking through this Spurs bit a little bit more, I think Dennis Rodman was the next one that definitely caught my eye. And you had a bit of a story about he and Madonna in the elevator. Are you able to chat us through what they're talking about? Or
Yeah. Okay. So there was a rumor that Dennis Rodman and Madonna were an item back in his bad boy days when he was playing for the Spurs. And, he actually had a quote in his book about Madonna and said, and I put this in my book too, that, about how he thought that Madonna was really attracted to the bad boys, and so that's why he figured he liked her. But we didn't know for sure. We had only heard about it. So we were in Salt Lake City and we were staying like at the Marriott, down a few blocks from the Delta Center in Salt Lake City. We were playing the Jazz. And it was about 12 o'clock and I was about an hour away. I was about to leave to go to the game, walk down the block to the production truck about 1 o'clock for the 7 o'clock game. But I started hearing like a really loud knock on my door. I hear like a pounding, bam, 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 bam. And I'm going, okay, the housekeeper's a little bit impatient, right? And I go, let me just look. And I looked through the peephole and it wasn't my door. It was so loud. It was a door
down the
across
hall
from my room, directly across the hotel door across. But my door was like shaking. It was so loud. I look out the peephole and I go, what is it? And I looked and it was Madonna, but I didn't know for sure because like the players normally stay on different floors from us, but apparently Dennis Rodman was right across the hall from me.
Robin was
and
probably,
I looked
probably
out the door and she's going,
players.
Dennis, let me in. And so he lets her in. Apparently she caught him by surprise. And then he had so then about an hour later, I'm leaving to go to the game. I walk down the hallway and there's nothing in the hallway, no noise or anything, but the elevator door, I didn't have to wait at all. It was open. And I go, okay, this is great. So I get in the elevator and about to push the button. And then I turn and I'm not the only one in this elevator. It's Madonna and Dennis Rodman and the door's going to close and they're having an argument and I'm the fly on the wall. I go, okay, just don't say anything. What is going on? And he was getting ready to go somewhere and she wanted to go with him, but he didn't want her to go with him. And I'm listening to this whole conversation. So that was pretty much that. And then I think she came to the game that night, but
I feel like back in the day, that would be like front page of TMZ or something, like that was pre Twitter and pre Insta.
Yeah, I could have just taken my camera. But you know what? You don't do that. You really don't when you're kind of inside and you don't want to screw with that. Let them do what they want in their private life. But but I mean, there's other stories like, with Tim Duncan. I know a lot of people.
I can't wait to talk about this actually. Yeah.
Well, I think you guys might share with me a little opinion about this, but Tim Duncan is actually a very engaging, funny guy. And but on the court, you only know him as a big fundamental, with his bank shots and
goes to work.
Very serious with what he does. But he's not so. He's more of an introvert, on the court. Yep. He doesn't try to be showy. That's why San Antonio was a perfect place for him.
Yeah.
No pressure to be a celebrity or a star. Yeah. Sorry, he could kind of just do his career kind of like in a small...
Just to go back to Rodman for 2 seconds. I feel like he would have lost his mind in San Antonio because I've been there. That place is like quiet as anything at night. Where did he go to party?
Don't worry about that. There's plenty going on in San Antonio.
Okay. Maybe I still
Okay, you're wrong about that. There's a part... It's Fiesta town, man. They got the river, you got Fiesta going on. I mean, San Antonio, you can have a really great time down there.
I just assumed he flew back to Dallas for the evening or something on a private
No,
jet.
but he's from Dallas, right? So that's where he played high school and anyway.
Yeah, sorry.
So
Tim Duncan.
So anyway, so there was one game where I used to fly from Dallas and meet the team on the road, and so we're playing in Toronto one day at Air Canada Center it was then, and it was about 12 o'clock. I arrive at the arena, but the production truck opens about 1 o'clock. But so I sauntered on my way into the arena, and the Spurs were still doing their shoot around. And for those that don't know what a shoot around is, that's kind of like where they walk through the game plan for the night. It's usually about a 45-minute to hour practice on the court, and then they go back to the hotel, and then they don't come back till about 2 hours before the game in the team bus. But the team was out there, and you're not really supposed to talk to the players at all, really, unless they happen to be walking by, or you see them in the hotel lobby and they come. But you still really just let them do their own thing, and and you just mind your own business, and you'll keep your job. Well, so now I remembered that Tim had not been feeling well the day before, and so he starts, the practice is ending, and now he's starting walking over right where I was sitting on the side of the court, and I kind of looked down and I go, wow, there's some like warm-ups and stuff. I guess he's coming for his warm-ups, and he's coming right to me. It's literally right in the next seat. So he comes up to me, and I said, well, I've got to say something. I go, Timmy, how are you feeling? He goes, I'm all right. I'm going to play tonight. How are you? And I thought to myself, wow, he's asking me, how am I? And I feel great, Timmy. I scored 21 points in the JBA, the Jewish Basketball Association, yesterday. And he looks at me and he goes, seriously, he goes, got to dominate where you can, man. So, nice guy.
Actually, Rod, that's a really good joke.
And it's true. It was just a look on his face. He was serious, but it was like funny. God, dominate where you can, man. So I really talk about that in the book, and that's my like little slogan. When I sign books, got to dominate where you can, man.
I've heard he's like quite a funny guy outside of sort of forward-facing media and all that type of stuff. So that's really cool. Do you want to talk about your book for a little bit now? This seems like the perfect opportunity to
No, I don't really want to talk about my book. I'd rather no, I'm kidding. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, it took me about 4 years to write it. Not really 40 years to write it, actually, because I wasn't planning on writing a book, but I knew that when I had any like kind of big moments, and that I would like, most people do, you journal it, write down things, because you never know sometimes when you want to relive a story or someone to ask you. And you know what? You really don't actually realize, 20, 25 years ago, you have a big moment, and you're going to think, well, I'm always going to remember every detail about this moment.
Yeah.
You really don't. And so if you write it down and journal it, then maybe when you tell the story or write a book later on, you actually have the points pretty accurately.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, that would be my thing. If I was not writing something down, there's no way I could go back and remember all this stuff.
Yeah. And sometimes people will remind me of more details because they were involved in the story. But so then during COVID, when there were no sports to produce, there was nothing going on. We couldn't do anything, and so I'm home a lot. And my wife looks at me one day and says, you're really starting to get into my hair. Why don't you go write a book or something? Yeah. So I did. I wrote a book. I wrote the book, and it took me, that's about when I started, but it takes about 4 years from that point. Once you find a publisher, and then if you do, most people don't. It's like 98% can't get a publisher, but I was lucky, and they wanted to publish my book, and TCU Press in Fort Worth. And and so now they help and distribute it all over the place. But it's not just a book about, producing sports events. Well, there's a lot of that, right?
Yep.
And directing big events. But it's basically a story about some teenage kid, and that knew what he wanted to do when he was in elementary school, and set a path of getting a hard journalism background, and then not having anybody basically handing him a job or offering him stuff without him blazing his own path and trail. And so people that have read the book already, look and say, I want to make sure every parent that I know gives this book to their kids so they can read it and learn how to be successful on a personal basis and a professional basis, and doing it on your own. And he goes, that's kind of a subliminal message of the book,
Sure.
and you get a sense from me that I really enjoy what I'm doing and I'm passionate about it, because one of the things that I tell students when I talk to them is, whatever you want to do, make sure you're passionate at what you're doing, because you will be the best at what you like doing the most. And when you're competing in a sport or anything that you do, especially in our business where there are finite opportunities, there's only 12 WNBA teams and finite number of MLB and NBA teams,
Spot on, yeah.
And so there's not that many people that have that opportunity. So you have to be passionate at what you do. You always have to do the best job you can every time.
Yeah.
And it doesn't matter whether you're on starting out doing a little league game or a lower level game. The championship means as much to those people participating in that level of sport and their parents as the other people do. The other people may win a ring and everything like that. How many times have you watched something where, junior level or teenage kids win and they show a shot of parents and there's tears coming down their eyes and everything. So when I produce an event, I'm giving it my all, and I know how much it means to everyone that's in that game. They want to win. And so you want to get that across. And so you have to have that inside of you to get to the top level, I think, and then maintain your career for as long as I have. And I'm still doing it, because sometimes people will go. We were at dinner a few weeks ago, and one of my friend's wives said to my wife, without me hearing this, because I think I went to the bathroom or something, she goes, "Well, I don't understand it. My husband's been retired for a few years and everything. And why is Bobby still working? Do you guys really need the money? Are you financially a big?" And she goes, "You don't get it. No, he loves what he does." And that's, anyway, I know I've been talking a lot, but no,
I think the loving what you do, or like the passion, really just shows through. If you do what you love, then it's not a job. It's it becomes part of your life. Yeah, exactly.
It can be
Larry
work.
Brown is still coaching at 84, right? It's exactly the
same
philosophy. Yeah. I'm definitely very interested in successful people and what makes them there, and how that sort of journey gets there. So what you touched on before, actually, that part of my head, I'm really interested to listen to. So that I'm actually really keen to get in and have a read of that part of your book. I'm not going to lie to you, the part of the book I did read before we came on to do the interview was the Spurs part, and other than that, I haven't read much more. But I'll definitely go back and read that bit, because I think I've got 2 young kids, and that's probably something else that goes through my head too. It's like, how do you motivate your children to have that drive? And I'm not too
I guess
sure.
you let them discover what they want.
That's
rather
exactly
than,
right.
Because there are a lot of parents out there that do want to pass on what they want.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. But how do you motivate someone to have that drive to be successful?
Okay. This is a perfect segue to my son. And my son went to the University of Texas undergraduate, and then he decided in his senior year he wanted to go to law school. And I said, Lee, I go, I've been putting money away for your college for 20 years, 18 years till you got to college. Okay, we're good with that. And it's not that we're financially strapped, but if you were planning on going to law school, maybe you might have told us this a few years ago so we could put money away. It costs a lot of money to go to law school, right?
Yeah, right.
And for a few years. And we said, okay, you get in, so we got into SMU Law School in Dallas, which is really good. And then he worked, for a law firm, and then he became a staff attorney for NTT Data. And then we were eating dinner one night at home, and he was eating with us, and he goes, Mom and Dad, there's something I really wanted to talk to you about. And I go, what? He goes, I started this YouTube channel, and it's doing pretty well. And I think if I quit my job as an attorney and devote my full time to this YouTube channel, I think I can do a lot better. And we look at ourselves. So, yeah, that's a lot of money invested in that career. But we both immediately said, you know what? If that's what you're most passionate about and that's what you want to do, pursue it. You can always go back to being an attorney, and guess what? You can still use your law education in negotiating your contracts and everything with YouTube and these other channels. So now
that's a good point.
He has 1.9 million subscribers and is very successful. And Leon Hart's his handle, and he specializes in Pokemon cards collecting.
Do you remember what year he had that conversation with you, and how many years he'd been doing it before that?
I would say it's probably, about 9 years ago, somewhere in there.
Yeah. So maybe he then entered at maybe 1 or 2 years before he. Yeah, because I feel like. The
YouTube boom, I think.
It sounds like he was in at the ground floor, and he could sort of see like what was coming. Whereas,
yes,
I think part of the issue now is there's 25 billion. I'm using air quotes now. Content creators, right? And so the people that did it 10 years ago are doing fantastically out of it now. So like, good on him for seeing the writing on the wall. And
it's that visionary level stuff where the content's
right,
consumed, but and you see a need there, or just a want there from the market.
Right. And then he's also involved in a company called Rare Candy, which
talk to us about that.
Works with the collectible cards, collectible cards, and kind of acts as a little broker or an auction house, so people, when they want to invest in the card, they know that their money is going to be safe. And they know that the money coming in is going to be guaranteed, so, and then they have an auction site. It's called Rare Candy. You can look it up. And the term Rare Candy, I believe, actually comes from Pokemon. That's what kind of fuels them. People don't know that. But yeah, they've also just come up with this scanner that will take a card, and if you scan it, it's an app on your phone, and it scans the card and gives you an accurate reading of what your card is worth. And that has become wildly popular. They just debuted it recently.
Interesting.
And so you don't have to send your card in, and it'll grade it. And, one time my son sent one of his $35,000 worth Pokemon card into Beckett or whoever it was to get graded. And they lost it. They lost it in the factory or wherever it is, their company.
Tell me they
3 months. They didn't at first. They said, well, I don't know what. But then 3 months later, out of nowhere, they found it. And so that was a big save thing. But that's what I'm saying. That's why.
It would have been guaranteed, wouldn't it?
Yeah, I don't think I would let something of that value out of my hands. But
exactly.
But now things have evolved to where you don't have to do that. So anyway, that's his company. But anyway, so there's a lot of things in this book, that get into not only my career with the NBA, but the WNBA, because
I was going to say that's probably the next the next thing is talking about, I suppose, women in sport and the recent I guess, is it the resurgence,
it's a
spotlight,
boom. I think the last 12 months
the spotlight that's finally been shone onto the WNBA recently, which is
I was talking about that exactly, because earlier today when I was with a bunch of journalists, and one of the subtitle in my book is an inside look at sports, television, journalism, and gender equity.
Yeah.
Because I've been involved in women's sports since the 70s, even when the women's college game was not NCAA basketball, it was AIAW.
Oh, wow.
So, it's been that long. But, and I also had the honor to work for ESPN and Lifetime Network. It's a cable, national cable channel in the United States. And I produced the first season of the WNBA for those networks. So I've been involved in the league since its inception. And now I'm executive producer of the WNBA Dallas Wings for the last 9 years.
Yep.
And, some of our announcers are legendary players. Cheryl Swoops has been as our announcer this year, Nancy Lieberman, and others, So I really think that Caitlin Clark, obviously people know what kind of impact she has, but on the league, but it's not just her, but I want to tell you, just give you a couple stats.
Yeah. So let's deep dive into this, because I think, let's not make assumptions in this space is what I'd like to say, because I think I would love to hear your insights into this. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So attendance in the WNBA is up 48% over last season. Yep. There were 154 sellouts compared to only 45 in 2023.
Yep.
There are now 3 teams that are going to be added to the WNBA: Golden State in 25, and then Portland and Toronto in 2026. The WNBA social media drew 2.2 billion video hits, which quadrupled the number from 2023.
Yep.
The media rights deal for the NBA and the WNBA is reportedly like 2.2 billion for 11 seasons. 22 regular season games average at least 1 million viewers on TV. And last year, the league averaged 9,807 fans per game compared to just 6,615 the preceding year.
Massive.
So there's
another stat too around that. Her games have been sellouts, so they've been moving the games to bigger arenas to basically
almost
more
almost
fans.
all of them. The bigger arenas. And even I was in Indianapolis for one of her last game, her game where she scored her career high 35. That was on September 15th, just last month. And you cannot believe the feeling when you're walking in there, how loud and boisterous and how exciting it is, around that. But I'm going to say this. She's not the only reason why the league. It's like now.
Exactly. Yeah.
What's happened is she's opened a lot of eyes. I had a good friend of mine. He's still a good friend of mine. I played golf with him yesterday, actually. He said to me, wow. He goes, I'm watching Caitlin Clark game tonight. And he texted me this a few months ago. He goes, I didn't realize these women were so good. All the players, I go, yeah, they are. I go, but it took an impetus of Angel Reese and Caitlin Clark. It was kind of a carryover
Angel
from the
Wilson.
NCAA Final Four.
Yep.
It's like they were all watching that and they carried in. And now they're seeing that, Nafisa Collier from the Lynx, who's a teammate of Alana Smith, Australian. And then, Asia Wilson from the Las Vegas Aces. Brianna Stewart, from the New York Liberty. I mean, there's all these great players that are in the league. And now you're saying, this is actually really good. And if last night's basketball game was fantastic, it was the game 1 of the WNBA Finals. It was one of the most thrilling games that you could ever see in any sport at any level. It was. You thought one team was going to win, and a second later, the other team, and then it went to overtime, and then you thought New York was going to win the game, and then she misses the free throw. And, it's like you couldn't have scripted it better.
Yeah.
And it was great.
So what do you think Caitlin Clark's 10-year career arc is going to be? And this is a bit of a leading question to my follow-up question.
Yeah.
She's going to be one of the greatest players that have ever played the game. And she kind of already is like an all-around player.
Yeah.
Okay, so I was sitting at midcourt working for the WNBA and the league on a game that I didn't produce, but I also work in the capacity as a court administrator, timeout coordinator, national telecast. So I am the NBA rep at the game. I'm talking to the game officials. I'm dealing with replays. I'm talking to the network. I'm sitting right at center court. I have a good job and responsibility. And I'm watching her game in Dallas when she set the WNBA record for 19 assists in a game. And well, let's go back to May 3rd, earlier in the year, where I actually, during the shoot around, I interviewed her, asked her a question about, I said, you know what? People talk about your scoring, but you're such a great passer. And her eyes lit up and she smiled. Wow, someone's actually asking me about my passing.
Yeah.
And she said, I go, Leah Boston, some of these other players are just can't wait for you to get in there and get the ball. She goes, yeah, I can't wait. You know, the practices have been fantastic, but I can't wait to play tonight. You know, and then in that game that I did with her in July, I think it was, she had 19 assists. And it was like, and I put this in the book. I got this added to my book after the book was already kind of proofed. I had them add this, got this little subchapter added. There are few players that I can talk about that have the ability that she does as far as getting the ball to you as a player.
Yeah.
She's not necessarily throwing it right where you are, but she can intrinsically be able to know where you're going to be, and she'll pass the ball to where you're going to be, not necessarily where you are. And that not a lot of players can do that.
That's that cerebral level of basketball IQ. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, Sue Bird could do that. A few other, Magic Johnson, you know, I mean, Nancy Lieberman could. There are a lot of great players that can do that.
Yeah.
But I'm just saying she was underestimated at her passing ability.
Sure.
And she also was really good at quarterbacking it, Hail Marying it all the way down the court and still getting it to you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the stat that I think sticks out to me the most is her shooting distance. So she actually shoots on average further than Steph Curry does. And so I think that's really interesting for a couple of reasons. Obviously because of the physical differences in their stature, but she can still, you know, shoot bombs from that distance. And I actually wonder if really the comparison for me in my mind moving forward for her is going to be Steph Curry. The impact that you see Steph's had on the game and then outside of the game too.
Yeah,
and I
that's a good
suppose,
point.
yeah, like in terms of international impact, I actually wonder if she is going to have as equal amount of, you know, impact on the game and also outside
like
of
revolutionize the sport.
Yeah.
Like it's brought it into,
The other part about her too that's really fascinating for me is like they gave her a really raw deal. Like they gave her like a trial by fire and she took every lump, every hard foul, every foul to the back. She just stood up and she's tough as nails. And then her mental toughness is on display too, because they didn't go easy on her, you know, and they left her off Team USA, all that type of stuff. And I'm sure there was a part of that was like mental warfare, right? And she's just been so gracious. She's been so respectful to the elders of the WNBA. You know, I think she's just got it all, you know.
She does.
You're talking about her assists and her playmaking. And I know, I think even I've overlooked that in terms of her impact, perhaps. So, yeah.
Well, what I was going to say, and I also included this in the book, and it's funny when you do interviews and you hear people being interviewed about the book, they keep referring back to the book, right? But
okay, you
I
can
did
talk about your book. You
I'm doing
deserve
it.
4 years of labor for an hour interview.
5 decades too. But anyway,
yeah, I'm sorry. 5 decades.
Right, but I've talked about, you know, her maturity and her mental toughness.
Yeah, maturity,
and
exactly.
The fact that, you know, when these other players are knocking her down or saying things publicly, she's always like keeping that straight attitude.
She's up,
almost
man.
like she's almost subliminally telling you, I understand that's what the game is when you're a rookie.
That's tough.
She's
very toughness, though. Yeah,
she's very vocal on the court. Don't get me wrong. Like she's vocal to the game officials and to other players. She's but that's good. It's good to have that fight in you. But when you see her up close, you know, sometimes you can see some of the bruises, you know, that she's gotten from, you know, being knocked down unfairly. But you know, but she's handled it like a really true pro. She seems well beyond her years, and I think that's going to help her. And she has revolutionized. She already has revolutionized the game. Yeah, you know, with the ratings and the fans and everything that they're purchasing. And I'll tell you what, when the next Olympics comes around and she's on that team, and she will be, that's going to even push her even more.
Are we positioned for like you remember the Dream Team, how that was the handing of the torch from Magic and Bird over to Jordan?
I like where you're going with this.
This is that Michael Jordan Dream Team moment, the next Olympics with Caitlin Clark.
It is, and I'm going to tell you a couple of things about that. Number one, if you read my bio a little bit, you'll know I actually produced the official Dream Team video for NBC Sports in the '92 Barcelona game. So I was literally staying in the hotel right next to the boutique hotel where the Dream Team was staying, and to see all these people and the helicopters that would hover over wherever their bus went and everything, and the security, it was pretty amazing.
I have to ask this. Did you get to go to the practice where it was like Team A versus
I think that was in training camp before they got to that was where they got into the fight, like with Magic and them and all that. Yeah, that was like, but that
I want to see.
You got to keep your egos. You got to take your egos aside once you get to the level of the
footage is rumored
Olympics.
to be out there. I
want
to see that.
They'll say that's one of the hardest games they've ever played.
Yeah,
I know what you're referring to, but as far as passing the torch goes, I think it's very similar, because it's on with the passing of the torch from like Diana Taurasi, who hasn't really officially announced her retirement, unless she has in the last day or two, and I missed it. So she's the logo on the WNBA logo is Diana Taurasi.
Yep.
And, so when she's leaving, and now, you got the next group coming in, and I think, like you said, Caitlin seems like a sure bet to be the face of the league for the next 10 to 15 years.
Yeah.
So why don't we, is there anything else you want to talk about? Otherwise, I do have one more question, and that will probably be our last thing we'll be able to talk about today. Is there anything on your mind, or would you like me to ask you about the WNBA finals?
No, you take it away.
All right, great. Why don't you walk us through that? Because I feel like at the moment you literally have the best seats in the house. Like, give us a bit of a breakdown and where you think it's going to go.
Yeah. You know what? A lot of times, in any sport, they'll say that defense helps win a championship, and you have to have defense. You have to have good offense, but, the Minnesota Lynx have been known. Their coach, Cheryl Reeve, is known for that. For great defensive teams. Look, they just upset the New York Liberty in Game 1 on New York Liberty's home court. People don't realize that the New York Liberty is an inaugural team in the WNBA. They've been to 5 finals, but they've never won a championship. With all the great players that they've had through the years.
Just like their pro team, hey?
I was going to say, it's like a New York curse, isn't it?
But a little different. New York's been around a while, the Knicks, but and they have had some great players, and they've actually achieved it. But the Liberty really had a chip on their shoulder, and then when they lost last night, I think that could be. They're going to come out with gangbusters in Game 2, I know, but they kind of but great defense can stop a team, and they did last night. The Lynx did, and they ended up winning that game. And so now it's only a best of 5. It's not a best of 7. So. Winning the first game, I believe the stat I saw last night, the team that wins Game 1 wins 78% of the time, wins the championship. So we'll see what happens. I still feel like New York, they're not out of it, obviously. Yeah. They still have more depth than the Lynx do.
Yeah.
But defensively, the Lynx were not even, they were like predicted to finish like 8th or something, at the beginning of the year, and now here they are in the championship game, and they're up championship series, and they're up 1-0.
Yeah.
So,
can you talk about the defensive coverages on Sabrina Ionescu? Because I feel like for me, that's sort of the key matchup, or the key part of the taking the Liberty, down, really.
Well, they did. She didn't have a good shooting night last night, but you know what? She's known as pretty much the snake of the team, like you cut the head of the snake off, and well, she's the head of the snake, so if you cut her off, you have a chance to win. But even then, they still have like so many other weapons. But she didn't have a good shooting night, and that could be because of the effort of the team in covering her, with the Lynx. And the Lynx, like I said, are a very good defensive team. And Sabrina needs to have a better game for them to win. And she's a tough player.
Yeah.
She had a big third quarter, I believe, last night, but she needs to have a good 4 quarters total.
Yeah. Yeah, and if the Liberty don't bounce, I guess if the Lynx keep the pressure on or the clamps on, this could be an upset series very quickly.
I've only watched half of the game. I actually haven't, because it happened our time when I was working yesterday. So I've sort of watched about half of the game. I haven't watched the whole thing. But the thing that I've really noticed was how much pressure they were putting on her even before she had the ball, and then just the amount of ball pressure they had on her when she had it. It was actually quite. I feel like that was their game plan, was just to sort of take her out of it, and then after that, I feel like they're almost prepared to deal with whatever else happened.
Well, it makes it a level playing field if you take that piece off the board, right?
Yeah, it's almost like the Allen Iverson thing, where it's just like send 2 or 3 defenders at him, and then let the rest of the team score. Yeah,
it's true, but it wasn't working. They were down by double digits a lot.
And the last
only
quarter
in
to
the
push
fourth
it to
quarter.
overtime. Yeah.
Yeah, there's no way. Even like with a minute and a half to go, it looked like they didn't have a chance to win.
Yeah.
But Courtney Williams and then Nafisa Collier hits that shot. So, I mean, you need to see that shot that Courtney Williams hit at the end of regulation, and then you'll see how exciting the game. That whole last 3 minutes of the game is worth watching.
I haven't watched the second half yet, so I definitely need to go back and check it out. Yeah, I'm looking forward to it.
But anyway, just for my book, if anyone wants more information about it.
Yeah, sure. Where can we find out about your book? Where can we buy it from? Tell us about it. That's totally fine. Let's do it.
My name, robertsteinfeld.com.
We'll put all this into the show notes and our posts on socials and stuff.
And it's available everywhere. I have bookstores worldwide as far as like online bookstores, and then it will be in bookstores. It's actually being released on October 22nd, so that's just in a few days. And then I'll be making a book tour around the United States, a mini book tour starting on October 20th.
Perfect.
Don't have a stop in Australia at this point, but if someone wants to fly me out there and
pretty far to fly,
sponsor me, I might go.
I don't think our UConn Comptis budget is going to stretch to a business class flight for you. I'm sorry, Robert.
By the way, no, they're not. By the way, if you read a little bit more in my book, you're going to find that I actually have a chapter on someone that was known as one of Australia's greatest commodities was Olivia Newton-John.
Olivia Newton-John,
right.
Wow.
And she was one of my favorites, but I actually went to one of her first United States concerts, and I wrote a review for my college newspaper, and I reprinted that in my book. And then I actually got to meet her in Las Vegas about 8 years ago.
So is that
maybe not that long ago?
You were writing reviews about her? Was that Xanadu?
Yes.
What song tour was
it
that?
No, she was just starting out. She was performing at the Houston Livestock and Rodeo. It was her first big concert in the United States. Wow. I knew who she was because she had one hit song out. Yeah. I Honestly Love You, I think. And then her agent, Lee Kramer, I believe his name is, he talks in the book and he goes, yeah, she's getting real popular. She's starting to look at scripts for movies, but she's only going to do one that kind of she feels most comfortable with, And then Grease came out a few years later,
ridiculous.
And Xanadu after that.
Yeah.
But so I did get to meet her backstage and everything. So that was kind of neat. So I had to put that in there because my friends knew how much I really liked her.
She's an Aussie icon. You can't.
I know, along with the Bee Gees. Yeah, I love the Bee Gees.
I've had an absolutely fantastic morning. We're honored that you'll come onto the show and share all of your stories with us, and we wish you best of luck with your book release. And we hope it does really well.
Yeah, and for those playing at home, once again, the book is called 3, 2, 1. We're on the air, and I've just noticed on the cover it says an introduction by Bill Walton.
Right, and Bill, passed away in May, unfortunately, obviously.
Yeah.
But I've worked with Bill Walton on beach volleyball for NBC Sports in the Olympics because he played volleyball. I actually worked with him doing basketball. And then when I did an Icons of Coaching episode with about John Wooden, the former legendary coach for UCLA, who he played for, we actually flew out to San Diego and we went to Bill Walton's home, which is really cool. And with all Grateful Dead music stuff and paraphernalia. And there's a picture in the book of us together. Well, I just asked him if he would write a little introduction for the book. And then it was it was June of a year ago. And then, not this past one, the prior one. Yeah. And he sent it to me. And then I was surprised. I didn't know he was that gravely ill, though, a year later, and then passed away in May, what a great guy he was. But when you read the introduction, if you knew Bill Walton, you know that Bill Walton wrote that because
you can hear his voice like reading it out to you.
Yeah. It's like fantastic. It's not very long. I'd like to, if you got a second,
of course,
please. I can read it to you. Okay, so Dr. Bob Steinfeld's latest masterpiece, 3-2-1, We're on the Air, perfectly captures the essence of our lives. Storytelling, which is the basis of knowledge, education, and entertainment.
Yep, that's
leadership, a requisite for success and production, actually making it all happen. There are two elements that define Bob Steinfeld. He has spent his life in the cockpit of high stakes, intense pressure of media content creation and delivery. He's forever behind the camera in the production truck, calling the shots, steering the show, keeping it real, and ensuring his team stays on track. I know, I was there. He's as good as it gets, as is his tail. Bob is at the top of the mountain. Come with us here on our wild ride through life, on our way to the promised land. The countdown has begun. The pressure's on. This space is getting hot. 3, 2, 1, we're on the air. Bill Walton.
Oh, God.
That's awesome.
That is classic. Awesome.
Anyway, I appreciate you guys having me on, and I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, great.
Thanks so much, Bob. We really appreciate it. And